Welcome back to International Reporters Roundtable. I'm your host, Iris Tao. For the remaining of this program, we'll be speaking with Dr. Tamir Rotman, director of the Free Spirit Experience in Israel, a treatment program for at-risk youth. Tamir and staff have repurposed their community to help rehabilitate the survivors of the Nova Music Festival attack on October 7th. Tamir, welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. So first, tell us about the work that you've been doing. What are you seeing and hearing from the survivors?
Well, we've been doing that from like the week immediately following the attacks, and throughout now it's 2.5 months later, roughly, and we've heard very, I guess, disturbing stories, very visual descriptions of the things that people have gone through, but I guess the emotional end of it, and also the distress is shifting. The people we're helping right now, for example, it's a little more kind of like under the surface versus the first couple of weeks. It was kind of like very, very much like ready to burst, and the experiences and everything, they were very vivid.
So tell us about some of the things that you heard from them about what happened. You talked about how it's mainly survivors of the music festival. I assume it's mostly young people. What did they see and what are they trying to heal from?
Absolutely. So it is mostly people in their 20s, mostly, and we talk trauma. So we talk about, first of all, the kind of like the response, the fight, flight, freeze responses, and people really connect with that and tell their stories through that. So from this guy who's been literally playing dead for 6 hours while his pockets are being searched and checking that he's dead, and bodies around him being shot, and that's one story, versus other people who have ran and kind of like heard the shots behind them and ran for about 36 kilometers, which is I think around 20 miles straight, no water, and kind of like trying to get to a safer location, not looking behind, and people who normally won't consider themselves being in shape. It's kind of like that's also that's the flight part of the fight or flight response. People who have been locked into like shelters and containers, and people around them shot or just made it out. Like obviously we're talking with survivors, so people that whatever decisions they were making or people were making for them worked for them, but a lot of guilt and a lot of really visual memories of those who didn't make it, or those who they had to run over or to get away from, or it like driving the cars and seeing, like one person described, like buckets of blood on the road, and cars being shot at, and everything. So it's been pretty horrid, and there are some, like in the day and age, people also have some documentation on their phones that they're taking, and also there's a really interesting video that's combining the Israelis' phone videos versus the Palestinians' phone videos, and you see everything parallel. One end, kind of like, yeah, yeah. It's very disturbing, and it's very kind of like really meeting the core of cruelty, the core of violence.
And that's very hard to hear, and of course for us to imagine right here in the US. I'm sure you're going through a lot there. And next I would like to ask you, what kind of methods, what kind of healing techniques or mental health methods are you trying to use to help with the survivors about coming back to what's happening in the world?
Yeah. So, and this is a really good question, and the methods or the depth of what we're doing is shifting from the immediately following weeks after the attack, where it's very fresh, and our main focus is on helping people regain a sense of control in their lives, a sense of functioning, and a lot of it is based in the somatic and the sympathetic and parasympathetic system. So a lot of somatic experiencing like methods that have to do with with triggering the parasympathetic system, helping the sympathetic system kind of like tone down and relax, and kind of like, and the brain kick in and kind of like maybe distract some of the images, some of the things that people are experiencing, and helping them function. Free Spirit in general really believes in kind of like therapy through work, through doing things, through action, through functioning. So our participants, they come to a kibbutz, they are invited into our community. They cook with us. They do different projects. They work with clay. They work with yoga, and with different kind of like more action oriented experiential therapies that stress both kind of like the therapeutic part, but also the functioning part. And as things progress, like so, just recently, we're a little more into the processing. There's a really very clearly expressed need to tell the story, and part of the professional community really talks about that shift from what we know about trauma work to what we're seeing here, and people really have that need to open it up and to express it, and we're trying to help them do that in a contained way, so through art, through painting, and through drawing and things like that, through like different methods of kind of guided imagery, and work like that helps them process it, but still stay safe and contained and protected.
Wow, it's very impressive all that you are doing to help them. Thank you for doing that. And I want to move, of course, to a larger picture here. In addition to the survivors of the attack, all of us in the world, in Israel, in the US, around the world, we are feeling the impact of the war right now. What would you advise people, including Jews in the US and around the world, to do right now as they're going through such hard times? How can they heal?
That's a super deep question, and I think there are different things you can do around that, and we know, like mainly since I happened to be in the U.S. During the 9/11 attacks, and mainly since then, we know about secondary trauma and vicarious trauma for people like therapists and first responders that are experiencing it through the people who are experienced it firsthand, and we know that's also very traumatic. So really regulating your exposure to different things, so your exposure to pictures, your exposure to the news, is super important to regulate that. I know in the US there's a lot of conflict um, between kind of like the shockwaves of the war and everything's happening, both on the Jewish side of it and the Palestinian side of it, and the rest of the U.S. is kind of like gets tangled into it. And really, what I recommend is staying balanced, and not being too reactive, and not kind of like and trying to. There's always at least two sides to the story, and recognizing that and reaching out in peace, and trying to understand each other rather than to fight, and rather than to kind of like what's called demonizing the other side. It's very human to try to do that when you're being attacked, or you feel like you're being attacked, to demonize the other side, like it's not human. And I think it's so important to have a conversation that's not so heated, that's open, that's listening, and part of like what's really amazing in for our participants that we see that's so amazing is coming out of those atrocities and that level of violence. One of their main responses to being welcomed into our community is saying, like, it's helping us regain this trust, or this kind of like belief into human nature, and really helping each other and reaching out for people, even within your community, if you can, outside of your community, and with an open heart. I think that really has a potential of balancing that out, and bringing some good in the background of everything that's happening. I think it's so crucial. There's so much fighting. There's so much hatred going around. We don't need to contribute to that.
Wow, faith in human nature, that's so important, especially as the war is now spreading into a much larger debate about politics, different countries, different sides, and it is a heated debate going on. And thank you so much for reminding us of that important fact that we need to stay hopeful and faithful in our shared human nature as humans. Thank you so much for joining us, Tamir, and for your work. Your commitment to service is deeply appreciated, and our hearts are with you and all the people that you're helping. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.